Welcome to my Blackwing Lair boss guide for Season of Discovery. First and foremost, let's talk about the Dragon Trials. This will be the new raid difficulty for Blackwing Lair. To be eligible for the hardest difficulty, you'll need to have 3 of these trials activated, one of those 3 being the Black Dragon affix. The Black Trial or the Black Essence will be additional mechanics for every single boss. We'll go over those as we approach each of the encounters. The Red Trial will be a fire debuff. Simply heal this target above 90% health to remove it. Try to do this quickly as it is a stacking debuff. Blue Trial will be a soak mechanic. If you see anyone glowing with a blue aura around them, try to help and stack on this player to split the arcane damage that this will do. The Green Trial will be a green circle that will be marked around the player affected by it. Anyone nearby this player will take additional damage, and whenever the debuff expires, it will leave a pool of poison on the ground, so try to run out of the raid and drop this in a safe location. And then the Bronze Trial will randomly speed up your movement speed, as well as slow down your movement speed. To toggle on these trials, simply talk to Lord Nefarian at the beginning of the instance. Be sure to check on what color the whelp is beside them. This indicates what trial needs to be activated to receive some bonus loot at the end of the raid. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into the boss fights. Razorgore the Untamed. To start this fight, clear out the ads on the left platform and gain control of the Orb of Domination. Have one of your raid members assigned to controlling Razorgore and have a backup in case things go wrong. Ideally, this is your main tank controlling Razorgore. For the player controlling Razorgore, you'll want to just be using your pet button number 4 to destroy the eggs. Keep in mind that there is a 1-minute debuff from when you click the orb, and you can only control Razorgore for 90 seconds, so after those 90 seconds are up, make sure that you re-click the orb as quickly as possible, and if Razorgore is close to you, try to bring them farther away from you so that you have enough time to re-click that orb. Be sure to be vocal if you can't click the orb due to the mind exhaustion debuff that we talked about earlier. For the rest of the raid, split your melee groups into 2 parts, one on the left and one on the right, and then have the rest of the ranged and healers spread out evenly. Once you break around 10 eggs, keep an eye on the giant egg in the center of the room as it will spawn a chromatic drake. Have your off-tank pick this up and face it away from the raid. Your primary focus will still be on the ads, making sure that the player controlling Razorgore isn't interrupted. Before all the eggs are broken, get one of your mages to buff Razorgore with Amplify Magic. This will make them take more damage in Phase 2 from all of your caster DPS. Once all of the eggs are broken, Phase 2 will begin. If you're a melee, pop a free action potion to avoid being stunned from the War Stomp. Conflag will hit the main tank, so make sure that your off-tank is blasting as much threat as possible. So when the main tank gets stunned for 10 seconds, they will become the next new tank. The boss isn't tauntable, so that's why it's important to do that. I think most people know this, but before running in, make sure that you go in as a group. That way you can get all of the technician packs that are going to run away from you. These mobs drop a crucial item to completing your Thunder Fury, so anyone trying to do that would be very upset to just see these guys run away. Vaelastrasz the Corrupt. This is truly just a DPS check. Put on some fire resistance to help deal with the AoE fire damage. You'll be buffed with Essence of the Red on the pole, so you'll have virtually infinite resources. Make sure that if you're a healer or a caster DPS, you're constantly casting and you're never downranking your spells. To deal with the new 60% health barrier, we're going to be using the Burning Adrenaline mechanic to our advantage. We're going to have our raid stack on one side of the boss, and if you ever get a high stack of Burning Adrenaline, move out of the raid if you're a caster DPS, but if you're a melee DPS, run to the opposite side of the boss. That way you can maximize the damage you're getting from your Burning Adrenaline instead of running out and wasting the buff. Just keep in mind that if you ever reach 0% health with Burning Adrenaline, you will explode and do a ton of AoE damage to the raid. For the tanks, keep an eye on their Burning Adrenaline stacks, and if they ever go over 20 to 25, get ready to pop some defensive cooldowns or call for some externals like pain suppression. It's a safe bet to have your off-tank chase threat. If your main tank is to fall over, it's almost a guaranteed wipe. Once the fight is over, make sure that you keep healing the targets affected by the Flame Breath as they will continue taking damage even though the fight is over. For Broodlord, we're going to pull them into a cubby. This will make it a lot easier to deal with the knockback, the frontal cleave, and the blast wave. The new mechanic will be a tactical charge. They'll mark a player, charge them, and begin to auto-attack them. Be sure to snipe them with a ton of heals as they're going to get trucked by Broodlord. Periodically, a Mortal Strike will go out. Make sure that you're topping the tank at all times, pre-shielding them whenever they're affected by Mortal Strike, or coordinating some defensive cooldowns. At 50%, Broodlord will teleport to the back of the room. They'll start AoEing the entire raid until they're picked up by a tank. This is why we pulled them into the cubby so that the transition is much quicker. Just rinse and repeat what we did before, pre-shielding the tank for when the Mortal Strike goes out, keeping your back against the wall so you don't get knocked into any traps, and you should be good to go. Firemaw. For this fight, I recommend everyone equipping their Oni scale cloaks. This will help with the fire res, making this fight very trivial. Just put on as much fire resistance as possible and you'll completely ignore the flame buffet mechanic. For the wing buffet, make sure that your off tank is taunting whenever this goes out. This will drop the threat of the main tank, making sure that it's facing away from the raid so that you're not breathing the raid with Shadow Flame. The new mechanic is static electricity. At around 8 stacks, be sure to just move out of the raid so that you don't chain lightning the raid whenever this debuff expires. Other than that, pay attention to your flame buffet stacks. If you get too high, you start to take a ton of damage. Line of sight the boss to drop these stacks. It's very simple to do so. You could also pop a fire protection potion or even a nature protection potion to make this fight even easier. Ebonroc and Flamegor. For this fight, hunters will need to trank shot the frenzy. To help out with this fight, pop a fire protection potion or a shadow protection potion as it will help mitigate a lot of the damage. Keep on some of your fire resistance gear as you will completely mitigate a lot of the Brand of Flame. Both dragons do a different debuff, Brand of Shadow and Brand of Flame. Once you get to around 3 or 4 stacks, you should be looking to swap to the other dragon. On top of that, you'll have an additional buff, Stop or Go. It's exactly what you think. If you get the Stop debuff, you need to stop and don't move your character. If you get the Go debuff, you need to continue moving or you will take additional damage. To make the transition easier, you can have a third tank stand in the middle and taunt off whatever tank needs to transition to the other Drake. Make sure that you kill these evenly as they will enrage if you kill one earlier than the other. Chromaggus. For this fight, hunters will need to trank shot the frenzy. And on the pull, get your mages to cast Detect Magic so you can see what spell they're vulnerable to. Chromaggus still has their usual Brood Afflictions. Make sure you're dispelling, decursing, and getting rid of these as quickly as possible, as it just makes the fight harder than it needs to be. Always prioritize your tank and then your healers. Every week, Chromaggus will do 2 breaths as their normal rotation. This changes every single time, but here's what each of the breaths will do. Frostburn will drain mana and increase the time between attacks. Corrosive Acid is a dot and it will reduce the armor by 4,500. Ignite Flesh will be a fire damage dot. Incinerate will be a burst of fire damage, and then Time Lapse will freeze the player in place and reduce their health by 50%. Chromaggus will cast a series of breaths at around 75, 50%, or even at 25%. You'll know that they're casting these chain of breaths when it does this exact order. It's going to be Frostburn first, Incinerate into Time Lapse, followed by Corrosive Acid into Ignite Flesh. At this point, you're going to want to pop Power Word Barrier, get a warrior to pop Rallying Cry, or any other defensive cooldowns. All of these are line of sightable, and make sure that you're line of sighting whenever you get the big chain of all the breaths. And it's always a safe bet to get your off tank to generate some threat. In case your main tank gets stunned, it'll go to the next person highest on threat. At 50%, Chromaggus will roll over, causing meteors to fall from the sky. Simply just spread out to avoid this damage. Only other thing to keep an eye on is at 20%, Chromaggus will enrage, so save some CDs for that final push. Finally, Nefarian. Phase 1, make sure that everyone equips their Oni skill cloak. If you don't have it on during the transition into Phase 2, you will just get one shot. Split the raid in half to attack the 2 Draconoid waves. Whenever you kill them, try to keep them in a stacked location as they come back to fight you in Phase 3. Going into Phase 2, if you don't have a cloak, move behind the throne to avoid the breath. You want to have a tank and 2 healers move into position early for when Nefarian lands. Nefarian will still do their normal abilities in Phase 2, casting a fear, so make sure that you assign fear wards or drop Tremor Totems. On top of that, make sure that you assign a druid or mage to decurse the tank, as Nefarian will put a deadly curse on them. And most importantly, the class calls. Here are all of the class calls if you're not familiar with them. And then for every class call, there will be a certain school of magic that will go out. For paladins, there'll be a consecrate. For mages, there'll be an arcane explosion. Warlocks, there'll be a shadow bolt volley. You get the idea. You just have to look for these visual cues and move out of those mechanics. At 20%, all of the Draconoid waves you cleared in Phase 1 will come back as undead skellies. Have one of your warriors pop a lip and cast Challenging Shout to pull them off of the healers. They don't have a ton of health, so just stack these up and cleave these down. Keep doing the class calls and you'll be able to secure your kill on Nefarian. Congratulations on your full clear for Blackwing Lair. That's about it for this one. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos just like this. Comment down below what you'd like to see next, and as always, I will see you in the next one.